All right, welcome to another episode of the Conquer Cast. I am honored today to have Team Andrus here with me, Jeremy and Kristin Andrus, the owners of Traeger Grills. But there's a lot more to them than just the Traeger Grills and this incredible shirt that you're wearing today. I love it.
I had to wear the Traeger party shirt.
You do.
Today.
I love it. I need to get me one of those. I want to dive in. I've been looking forward to this for a little while, and a little anxious, a little nervous for it. You two are this power couple that people recognize, people look to, for example, in both the business and family world, even in the in your faith. And I want to dive into those things today. Jeremy's the president and CEO of Andrus, right?
Actually,
Traeger.
Kristin is the CEO.
I meant to say yes, and then the chief culture officer of the Team Andrus, right? I meant to say Traeger. I apologize. And you just wrote, Kristin, a cookbook that you just launched. It is Life at Our Table. I purchased it last night.
Thank you.
I love what you're doing with that. I think the proceeds are going to the Huntsman Mental Health.
Mm-hmm.
Where did that come from? Tell us a little bit about that as we get started.
Yeah, absolutely. So my parents are in their 70s, and we don't come from a long line of pioneers. We're here in Utah, and it's not that we have this genealogy that goes, hundreds of years back that we can trace back through pioneer heritage or things like that. So I started thinking, what is my family's legacy? What is my parents' heritage that they're leaving behind? And really, it is hosting and gathering and connecting. My parents, we always had a full table. Their language of love is food and bringing people together. And so we always had people at our table. My parents were always the one, throwing the Christmas party or having a summer barbecue, or, my dad was mentoring students in my high school. My mom was volunteering. And so our life was so full of not only parties and fun, but a lot of hard things as well. And along with that family tree that I talked about, we have a lot of addiction and mental health and suicide on both sides of my family, and really closer to home with my brother, David Moore, who has struggled with addiction for over 20 years. Jeremy and I have been in that story over the last 20 years, watching him and loving him and trying to help. What's so great about David is he will shout it from the rooftops, and he really wants to turn this trial in his life into something bigger and better so that he can help others. And so when I proposed that we were going to write this cookbook, I was going to help, bring it to fruition and bring it to life. My family was excited. But then when we talked about this altruistic element of, let's not just sell this beautiful cookbook for $35, but Jeremy and I decided that we're going to give 100% of the proceeds to Huntsman Mental Health. Wow. And they are incredible. We hear the word mental health all the time right now, right? But what we're doing and what's been happening over the past 2 decades isn't working. And so what I love about Huntsman is, one, they're located here in Utah, but they are a lighthouse on a hill for the rest of the nation. And I would say the world of really disrupting the mental health space. They're doing things differently. Here in Utah, they just opened up the first of its kind crisis care center. So it's like an emergency room for mental health. Wow. So if you're struggling, you're not having to go up to the ER where the ER doctors don't know what they're doing. They're actually able to take care of you in a manner that...
Is that typically families taking their relatives there, or people just, hey, I need to go there? Is it,
Right. It is a mix of all of the above. Okay. I will tell you that at all of our in-person events, I think we ended up speaking over 1,500 people over the last month. There was a long line of people talking to Huntsman, talking to my brother and saying, I need to take my child there now. What's the address? How do I get there? You also see our friends experiencing homelessness who are living on the streets. They're able to be taken by police, and the police are able to get in and out in 6 minutes rather than a 6-hour stay in an emergency room. And then, of course, people checking them in. Jeremy and I have a dear friend right now that has a sibling that's really struggling, and the goal is to get them there. As soon as possible. So it's needed. So it was just this perfect, really perfect campaign of talking about mental health. I love to have a platform, shine a spotlight on something that's needed, where everyone understands. Everybody is affected in some way.
That's incredible. A few things come to mind when you share that. you guys have been blessed with the gift of hospitality. I've watched that on social media for a long time. My wife and I love watching the two of you and bringing people in, gathering with them. I think connection is something I'd like to discuss today, and how those connections are made stronger through that. Somebody once said that, when you succeed in life, you don't build a bigger fence, you build a bigger table. I don't know if that's the exact quote, but it looks like that's what you guys are doing in life. You're building a bigger table to bring people in, to connect. With your brother David, you're most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. So it's incredible that he's able to take those life perspectives and you as a family and apply those. And then on a kind of a more spiritual related, I guess it all kind of is spiritual related, but when you talk about that and the lines of people going to get this help, I think of a scripture we're familiar with where the Savior says, "Have ye any sick among you? Bring them hither," and what an awesome opportunity and facility and people that are there waiting ready to let us bring people that need this help.
Absolutely.
And to be healed. And I think through it all, I'm sure as a family, you've all been healed in the process of working with your brother and experiencing that healing that can come. And what an incredible resource that you guys are working with. So I see that from the Andrus family. It feels like left and right, whether you're with your family traveling the world doing those things or within the business. Is that just, were you born and raised that way? Like, what is that?
It's a good question. And I actually want to jump in and just share a couple of thoughts on this in particular, because there's a lot to unpack.
Okay.
Like Kristin talked about a cookbook, but there's so many layers, I think, that speak to Kristin and speak to our family and our marriage. The first is, I knew Kristin was high energy and like good at what she did, whatever it was, when we were dating. And I remember a day that we went on a sales call together. She was an amazing salesperson. I'm not a salesperson. And we went out, and I saw her close account after account after account. And I got to the end of the day, and I said, did you punk me? Like, did you set these up? She's like, no, these were just on my target list.
Wow.
And
for Traeger or?
This was for ADP. She sold payroll for ADP, and we had an afternoon together, and we went on sales calls together. Kristin has the ability to really get after things in a way that I've never seen in all of my life and all of my business experience. And when you build a business and other entrepreneurs and you go to Harvard Business School, you think you've seen the best of the best. And like, we all look at Kristin with envy. And what I think is amazing about it is not just the ability to like have energy and get things done. It's how she deploys that capability against good things. And she does it across the board. And we couldn't fill this, like we could fill hours and hours of the podcast on this topic. But I think the cookbook is a case in point of Kristin deciding she's going to do something that she's never done before. She starts it and she aggressively pursues it. But the end wasn't this beautiful cookbook. The end was rallying thousands of people and raising hundreds of thousands of dollars around a cause that's important. Wow. And it's something that I look at and say, I'm sort of like this so slow, steady grinder. Yeah. Like since I was 5 years old, starting businesses. And Kristin, she had a great career, and she decided to raise 6 children and stop working for a period of time. But when she started back, and her career is now, it's not profit related. I would say it's good related. The trajectory is unlike anyone's career I've ever seen. Yeah. And so I think it's remarkable. The cookbook in particular, and you asked about us and hosting and entertaining, it's interesting for me to think about how different our families and our family dynamics and cultures and environments were growing up. I grew up in a lower middle income home in Minnesota, and food wasn't important to us. It's just how we consume calories, and it got us from one thing to the next. And I remember my mom hated to cook, and she cooked casseroles, like 2 or 3, and then my dad pan fried Spam and said it was steak. And I thought it was steak.
That's awesome.
And I met Kristin. And like food was everything to their family, and hosting and entertaining. And it was like all this incredible energy, almost to the point where, coming from a family that's more reserved, I remember like being with her family over food and saying, "This is scary." Like their families, like with forks and knives and going after the calamari. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
it's an intense experience.
True. Still.
And we got married, and we moved into our first house, later that summer, August of that summer. And in October, Kristin says, "Okay, we need to think about who we're inviting to our family Christmas party." And I said, "Time out. First of all, we don't throw parties. Like, I didn't grow up in a house that threw parties. I'm a head down introverted person. The thought of throwing a Christmas party gave me anxiety. And second of all, we didn't have any friends." And I said, "We don't have any friends." And that was true.
It was true.
But you know what? We had, 25 people show up in our very small house in Yale, in Sugar House. And this last Christmas, we had, 400 people show up for our party. And they're all like, they are dear friends and they're good people. And what I have learned from Kristin in our family, opening our home to other people of all walks of life, cooking, it's not the food. The food may be the moment, it may be the excuse, but opening and creating warmth and love and bringing people in, it's just like, it's something that our family loves. It's part of our family culture. And it's interesting because I sometimes look at human beings as a business leader and say, it's hard for people to change. Spiritual change can be like one of these great moments, but like we kind of like our DNA is our DNA.
Yeah.
And then I think back to this first moment of Kristin saying, "Let's throw a Christmas party." And you know what? We do it every year, and that's one of multiple gatherings that we do, and it just feels good. Like every time,
That's
people leave, we say, that was really warm, that was really special, and so it has been it's been an important part of our family.
And it's been such a cool thing now with Traeger, and that's
Yeah.
what Traeger is all about,
All
is
about.
bringing people together to build a more beautiful and flavorful world. And so that interest that we had as a family together with Traeger has been so much fun.
That is cool. And my wife yesterday, I was asking, what should I ask them? And I said, there's so much we could dive into. And so that we had this conversation, and then we asked ChatGPT, and we went down. and I've been thinking about this for a period of time. But that's one of the things she asked, was like, specifically for you, Jeremy, was like, was food and cooking and everything like that, was that a part of you before, or did Traeger initiate that? Or sounds like it was Kristin's family. And then was that what, like, you look at Traeger, you were owners of Skull Candy before, CEO there, you're looking at Traeger, was that like, okay, I've now been in this world with Kristin where we host and we do this, and that could be so much a part of the brand? Did you have that kind of that vision as you purchased Traeger?
100%. And it was, and I would say it was opportunistic because Skull Candy was an incredible journey. And, I would say Kristin was very proud of it and always very supportive of it. But Skull Candy is sort of, it's this irreverent surf, skate, snow, indie music brand for 14 to 24-year-old males.
Yeah.
And so it was a great business. She was always she was involved and supportive. But when I left looking for something else, I looked at dozens and dozens of different businesses. And by that point, we were foodies. I was a foodie. It was part of our family. And so as we got into Traeger and realized like this was truly the intersection of something that was very important to both of us, it was really fun. And I would say Skull Candy she supported, Traeger we did together. And it's sort of funny thinking back to the first moment I went and met Traeger in the headquarters, and
There is in Oregon?
it was in Oregon at the time, and I was so mesmerized by what I experienced talking to Traeger owners. It was a very small brand at the time. And I came back and I went to the store and I bought a Traeger. And I remember being on the driveway setting it up, and it was the wrong instructions and mismatched hardware. It was kind of this disaster. And Kristin's sort of like over my shoulder, not snickering, but sort of like, so this is going to make you a better cook. And it's like, I have a lot of business ideas, and some of them are better than others. And I think she was slightly skeptical
Always.
until I cooked on it. And she said, "Boy, this is the best chicken I've ever eaten." And I know it's not you. I'm like, I was a foodie, but Kristin's an amazing cook, and so I didn't cook. I did the dishes, and I bought the food for the Sunday meal.
Well, and I was always on the barbecue. So my dad barbecued. Jeremy was never home.
You can't say that publicly.
He was never home to barbecue dinner on a Sunday maybe. And so that was my role. And so then when he starts making stuff, and by the way, he's got such an incredible gut for investing. Like it's just around business, his gut is incredible. So he always proves me wrong, but I'm always the skeptical one, not of his, decisions around investing, but just like, I don't know. So this one was, I think, the only one that I thought, this is incredible. That chicken is the best thing I've ever had. And I do this, so it was
That is awesome.
It was a cool moment. I remember the moment. I remember the driveway.
It was a cool moment. And I will never take credit for Kristin or any of the good that she does. But I have to tell the story, which is how sort of Traeger brought us together and was the early innings of the platform that Kristin has created, sort of her voice. I was in it was the first year that we acquired Traeger, and
This was in 2014?
2014.
Same year Mountain Ops started.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
My
Cool.
gosh. We can share battle stories and
Lots of battle stories, and we've had incredible growth, but you've just gone, you know.
you know what? You may see that from the outside, but
I was like, it's all relative, right?
the battle stories are real. And it was so I'm in China on a sourcing trip, and I get a call from my head of marketing. Danny said, "Hey, we have this opportunity to create a digital an ad for Target. Like they want to do this on Target.com." We're like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." We couldn't afford talent. And he said, do you think I could ask Kristin to do this?
That is awesome.
I'm like, go for it. And I remember coming home from China, and our house is filled with like turkeys because it was for things. There are like these like frozen turkeys on the ground, and food and people and cooking and a teleprompter, which is like not Kristin. It's like I don't know why they were doing a teleprompter because no one's better in front of a camera. But when I was gone, she had done this, and she started. You started an Instagram account, right? I think it was
Just a Dash.
Just a Dash, and that was a start of Kristin sharing, sharing recipes.
What's Just a Dash?
Just a Dash is
Just
how
a
I
Dash.
cook, and I joke with the cookbook that it's more art than science for me in cooking, and so it's just a dash of this.
That's
you don't
awesome.
need a teaspoon; it's just a dash. So that's how that started. But what's fun about this, talking about, and then where we are today is it jumped me into this. Incredible and, the good and the bad of social media, but gave me a platform. And I remember once again at Traeger, Brian Alexa coming to me a couple of years in. I see all your recipes. You keep taking pictures of food, but you've got 6 kids. You've got this dynamic family. You've got all this stuff going on. Change it to your name, Kristin Andrus, and start sharing about your life. And that's where, and so once again, Traeger helped me understand that that is where my voice came. It wasn't what chicken to put with the salad, which is a part of it and cooking dinner, but it was family. It was, the biggest thing I ever talk about. And I've actually held back a little bit because now we're a public company, but I used to talk about marriage all the time. And people love that. And I talked about motherhood and how I fail constantly at it. And so then I was able to, as we joked about before this podcast started, I just tell it all and I share it all. And so that I think is where people really resonated and saw our family and the fun we have and the hard times and the good times.
It's genuine and authentic. That's what I what my wife and I have loved about watching you guys and just kind of watching from the sidelines. And then Jeremy, you let me come down and have lunch with you a few months back. That was a special day and a moment for me. Like there's these people in your lives where you're like, it'd be amazing at some point to sit down with them and break bread, but I don't know if that'll ever happen, and just it's been very fortunate for me to have these moments now with you guys. So
100%.
Thank you.
So keep going. What this is.
Well, but boy, we go a lot of different directions. But I think it's Traeger's been interesting because it's been something that we've done together, and Kristin's been very involved. But I think it's also, it's been a really, it's been a great platform for me professionally to have success and failure and learn from it. But it's been a really great platform for our family, as is the nature of, a consumer brand. You have a voice, and I really love the voice of the Traeger brand, and Kristin highlighted it, which is, our mission is to bring people together to create a more flavorful world. And the flavor of it's cliche to say it's in the food. Of course, like cooking on a Traeger, it makes your food taste better.
Yeah.
This is not a commercial.
It's
Sounds
true.
good, though.
But what we learned early on is that food is an opportunity to get people to a table, and to create bonds and to create memories and relationships. And that experience is amplified when someone like lovingly prepares the food to serve. And because Traeger is like, we really want to democratize great cooking, when a mom who doesn't like to cook, or a dad who's never cooked before, is suddenly sort of unlocking this passion and sharing with his or her family, that is a moment that we think like really reflects the richness of a life well lived.
I agree.
And so I love that, it's, and there's been moments in time where, where we didn't need to make more money as a family to put food on the table, where I've had to reconcile going to work to build shareholder value every day. And like, it's a wonderful part of our economy. It's important to America, and I love it. As like, I'm a business builder at heart, and I absolutely love it. But I've had to think about how do I really do good in that journey? Because I just inherently don't believe we get to the end of our lives and say, the P&L in 2022 or the stock price, those are parts of the journey that matter to our investors. But I think we get to the end and we talk about people and how people changed and how we built an environment that was important to others. And so I've loved that we've been able to create a mission that I think is positive in communities and in people's homes. But I also love that at the same time, it's given our family, like especially me and Kristin, the ability to have a voice for good.
Yeah.
And for me, social media, it's all about communicating good.
Yeah.
And for Kristin, it's that on steroids. I mean, does it so well. And so, for example, we built this beautiful office space, which you see in this old newspaper agency corp building that we renovated. And one of the reasons that we thought it was the right investment is that there was an opportunity to bring the community in, and to partner and to bring Roots Charter High, whom we've partnered with and we're Monday through Wednesday. Everyone's in the office. Thursday and Friday, it's pretty slow. I go in every day, but I can't tell you how many times I'll go in on a Friday morning and the parking lot is full, and I'll walk into the Abbey, which is where our team feeds our. We cook and we feed the company, and we try and just have people together. And Kristin will be standing there with a mic, and it'll be 50 nonprofits. It'll be 350 women.
Wow.
And so it's been a platform and an opportunity to bring people in on so many levels. I mean, we when the IOC was in town and Utah was going after the Olympics, the IOC was able to, or the committee, the Utah organizing committee, was able to host one nice dinner.
Yeah.
And the IOC and the U.S. Olympic and the organizing committee for Utah, they chose Traeger.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And we had the ability to have people from around the world and to showcase not who Traeger is, but who Utah is, and what we believe in terms of family and community and service. And so, if my scorecard and my why every day were making another buck, that just wouldn't be fulfilling for me. Even though, like, early innings, I wanted to make some money. I wanted to pay off the Subaru and business school debt and my day trading debt and our mortgage. but it's been a long time since that's mattered. So having a platform that I think is meaningful for our family to do good is what makes building a business satisfying.
That's amazing. I absolutely love that. What a journey you guys have been on. And I love that you're doing it together. I listened to a talk you just gave at BYU Women's Conference, and you talked about some of the early days.
Yeah.
And it was difficult. He was gone a lot. Tell us,
Yeah.
like, because you're doing it together now.
Yeah.
You're such cheerleaders for each other. How was it in those foundational years?
Yeah.
And how have you guys come together to create this kind of cheerleader for each other, encouragement for each other?
Yeah. And it's also where you come from. So my dad was a stockbroker, is what they used to call him, in San Francisco. So he was home at 3:30 every day.
Okay.
We had family dinner every night, except for sports or whatever. And so my expectation was that, someone's home by, the husband's home by a certain time, and you all have dinner together. And then we moved to Sugar House here in Utah. And I looked out my window, and at 4:30, all of the dads and the husbands are mowing the lawn by like 4:40 at the latest, right? That's how it felt. And Jeremy was traveling, 250 days a year in Asia, building Skull Candy, which was exciting. But we got married a little bit later. I started having kids later. And I was just dying. I was not very happy. I would join him on some travel, which made me happy. And then I came home and it was like, and I owned a gym. I had endeavors that I was excited about, but my expectation, which I think is life, right? It's like the difference of happiness is our expectation versus what our life is. And my expectation was that he's gonna be home for dinner, or when I cook a fabulous dinner, which I used to do then, he wishes I did now, that he'd be home for it. And I wasn't, so I was just kicking against the pricks. I was always upset that he was traveling. I always took care of myself, but I started having babies, and it was just hard. It was hard. So a couple of years of that with good intermingled. And finally one day he sat me down, took me down to Valters, if you know that place, downtown Salt Lake City, and turned to me and said, "Kristin, what do you want? I can quit my job, get a 9-to-5, and become a librarian and not be an entrepreneur. I cannot do this without you. What do you want?" And as I mentioned, that BYU Women's Conference talk, is that conversation changed me, because I realized I did have a choice. It was a partnership, and that actually, when given the choice, I chose it. I mean, I remember at the time, we had met Snoop Dogg. That was a really big deal, right? He was using our headphones. And I mean, I'm joking, but I saw when I married Jeremy, or even started dating him, we dated for a very long time, I saw this incredible potential. He's wise, he's brilliant, he's funny. So I knew, I was in. I knew whatever he did, he was going to kill it. And by the way, I didn't know what I know now, but I wouldn't be surprised, even though he hadn't done any of this yet. And so I said, I'm in. And, thoughts and our brains are tricky or helpful. And so that day I really changed my brain and said, I'm in. I want to do this. And so I advocate for, still today, probably this morning and tomorrow and the day before, I advocate for myself. And I say, these are some things that I need, because sometimes careers and men, their lives can take over the family life. And so I think when you're really going to do it to be 100% and 100%, women have to use their voices. They have to speak their needs out loud. Jeremy, I just hired someone to help me with my social impact. That was really important to me, to be able to do what I'm doing better. And so he's all in on that, because I'm not sitting here saying, I need more help. You have, an assistant, you have all this stuff at the office and I don't have it. I'm saying, this is what I want. This is what I need. How can we figure this out? So from that moment, many, many years ago, I continue to do that. And I had a very full life, whether he was in Hong Kong or China or wherever he was, with or without him. So that helped a lot. Now, I am not someone who is super needy. I'm pretty content on my own, because we got married later and all of that. There wasn't this codependent, I don't think, thing for either of us. But you also have to find times to come together. And so what I found was I wasn't doing those things to help him and cheerlead him to get it back to me so that I would get the same thing. But what I found is the more I loved, the more I supported, the more I let almost everything go, and realized he actually did have our families best intentions for us and for me and for our marriage, that it came back 100 times. And my philanthropy and my charity work and my events at Traeger, my favorite videos are like all of the women that take videos of Jeremy taking a video of me, because he's just beaming and smiling, and what I do and the impact I'm trying to make is just as big to him as what he's doing. And I joke that he has to sell a lot of grills so that we can then give money away and help people. And it's true though. It's really, really true that like our goal is not, we'd love Traeger to grow, but our goal is to make impact. Our goal is to help people. Our goal is to show up, especially in Utah. We love Utah. And we're really, really motivated to do everything we can, using our skills and talents and to do the best for the world. And so it got there quickly. I would say, I think the change was fast, but it was communication. Yeah. It was a conversation, obviously, with faith, with prayer, with, where he's and I will say this, because I know that there's women listening saying, but my husband, but my marriage. And I did marry a good human. And so when you start at a baseline that's in a really good spot, it's easier to have a good, fulfilling, dynamic marriage. But all we can work on is ourselves, right? We can't change him. We can try to go to therapy. We can try to do things. But I talk to a lot of women online, and I know that marriage is hard. And it's not always one conversation that changes everything. So I'm always a little hesitant to share that. But when we can speak our needs, when we can tell our families, our children, they're having to sacrifice for my work quite a bit. And I actually don't think it's a bad thing. Yeah. I think it works.
That is amazing. It's incredible. I think was the title of your BYU Women's Conference talk. It was around communication, right? Effective communication for strong relationships. And it sounds like that's how it's been established for the two of you. And just asking the question, what do you want? Yeah. What do you need? Like, I think you probably see it a lot working with women, that maybe that communication, there's barriers there. There's are there routines, kind of rituals as a couple that you guys do, or like things that you, as the listeners listening, like what are some practical things that they can do to bring their marriage together in a way where they are effectively communicating and they're having those open conversations, or they're cheering each other on? Like, that's the best. I love what I'm witnessing, because it's like, you can see you want it for the other, and individually, like, you want her to succeed, and you'll do everything in those photos and those videos that people are seeing you take. It's like genuine and authentic love, and that's success right there in and of itself. True. Success is knowing that those who know you best love you most, and you're watching that with you too. What are there some principles or anything more that you just taught from that you'd want to share that have helped you guys?
So I'll share a couple of things, and I would say, early in our marriage, even beyond this moment, my life was busy. We're having children. I mean, like, there are definitely
lots
moments.
Of children.
Children fast, and we had 6 kids in 8 years.
And that's part of it, right? Like, sometimes I think that people think, well, that's you shouldn't get that busy, or you shouldn't be doing that. Like, that's part of these phases of life, right?
It's normal.
Our life was busy. I'm an entrepreneur. Actually, Kristen was an entrepreneur when we had our first 2 children. And 6 kids in 8 years, I mean, like, it felt like the wheels were spinning off the car, not some days, but most days.
And twins, the
twins
last twins, right? And that's just another element,
yeah,
isn't it?
But that was actually where we were like, we're done. So I felt like we would like sit on the front porch and actually enjoy it, because we weren't knowing that we're going to get pregnant again. And, like, it was, I don't know.
There's some real selective nostalgia there, because like I remember when the twins were 2 years old, and I see them like crawling out a window on the roof, and I'm like, no. You know what? It was never calm, but I think we decided early on, from a family perspective, that we didn't choose to live in a museum. We were going to embrace the chaos. We were going to enjoy the moment. And
is that a conversation you had where you're like, this is how we're gonna?
Yeah. I think it was, well, particularly when we moved into it, we lived in.
Yeah, that's true.
We lived in a very, very small, I'll call it a humble house that our family just destroyed. Yeah. And then we built a house because we ran out of space. We had, 6 children, 8 of us in a 2,500 square foot house. And we built a house in Holiday, and we very deliberately said before we moved in, like, we're not gonna care when a golf club goes through a wall, or like, for example, when my boys cut the server cables with the shears. It's like this is it could be neat and tidy, and when it is, we'll miss these moments. So there was when we were able to sort of step back and take a deep breath, there was a very deliberate decision to really enjoy the moments that we were going through. It's like, as chaotic as they may have felt. From a marriage perspective, in the early innings, it's like I was so busy and she was so busy raising the family that I would say marriage was fine. We weren't highly in sync. It was just busy, and we would cross in the night, and I'd be home long enough to pack a bag, do some laundry, and hop on a flight somewhere else. And so we did our best during that period of time. But I would say when it really started to feel like we were in sync, and it wasn't just about me building a business and that being the center of attention, and Kristin sort of raising kids. And I wasn't an absent father. I changed thousands of diapers, but I did travel a lot. And I would say when Kristin started to extend herself outside of our family and begin to do things in the community, and they started really small. I mean, they started with Kristin on a cold day calling a few girlfriends and saying, hey, we're going to go to Taco Bell or McDonald's and bring food down to Liberty Park to those in need. So cool. And they grew over time. And what I learned is that, and this isn't, this is something that things aren't learned in moments. It's like, you turn the dials and you realize that you've done something good, and you lean into it, that the more I not only supported Kristin, but felt genuine energy and excitement for what she was doing, and the more that it was I would say very equally weighted in terms of my focus on her and her mission, and eventually even more so. I mean, like, you can only talk so much about the mechanical problems of your grill, or like one of your leaders that's not treating other people well. The more that my focus started turning to Kristin in a very genuine sense of pride and excitement for her, that's when I felt like our marriage became a team sport. And that is a very sort of, it's a very virtuous cycle of loving and supporting. And it's not about me, it's about her for me. And she's always been like super supportive of me. That's when we said, we're doing this together. Like, we're doing this as a family. And I love what she brings to our family in terms of the opportunities for us to go and give. And if it were up to me, man, I'm just still so busy running a business that's actually really hard right now. And so she takes us with her, and we all come home and say thank you. Like, not all of our children say thank you, but I will come
They
home.
will someday.
They
right?
will.
Yeah,
Like,
they're used to it.
It's truly good for our family. And so I think we've entered this moment where doing good, not just in our family, but for others, is so much more important than any driver. Our needs have been met, and it's about the next generation. It's about our children, and it's about the people around us, and in part because it's the right thing to do, but even more so, I think it'd be hard for us to be happy otherwise. I don't think if we started, like, consumption's never, the only place that we really love to spend money is on travel.
Yeah.
And like, it's like, it's the experiences that we have, but we don't believe in consumption. We just don't think, we've never seen it bring us great joy outside of experiences.
Yeah, we're the same. Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, that's awesome. Tell me about your kids. You were just saying that they see you doing these things. They see you're busy. They see your marriage is incredible, which is such a blessing for your kids to see.
Yeah.
Even if you've gone through good, the bad, the ugly.
They don't
for
remember
them,
that. It's been good since they've had a memory.
And so now they're watching you be actively engaged in so many good causes, helping people. how are they brought along? What have you done to involve them, and what would you say they're taking away from what they're witnessing with their parents and what they're witnessing themselves as they are involved?
Yeah. What I love to see is when they watch it, and you wonder, they come to service projects. We go on service humanitarian trips. We do it all, right? We do it more than probably anyone. I know. But you don't know if it's sinking in. You don't it's a good experience. They don't mind the service projects. It's what we've always done. But there's been a couple instances that stick out that I realize that what we're doing is working. One of them was I was working on the Utah Period Project, where we got free period products into all K through 12 girls' bathrooms across the state of Utah. And my daughter, who it was probably 4 years ago, so she was probably in 7th or 8th grade, came home and said, Mom, it's not fair for everyone at my school. We're at a private school and we don't have free pads and tampons. And Mom, by the way, you're dedicating your life to this for every girl in our state, but we don't have this. And so she sat down, and I remember on little yellow sticky notes wrote out that what she was going to say to the principal. So she called the principal. She set an appointment. She went in and sat with her and said, my mom and her friends are getting free period products into all bathrooms in schools in Utah. And she advocated for herself, sat with the principal, and the principal said, okay, we're going to do this. Wow. She then came back a month or two later and said, you've put pads into all of the bathrooms. That's not what my friends and I use. Everyone here wants tampons. So not only was it but she was going to ask for what the girls wanted. And she was not advocating just for herself. She could have brought it to school, but for all of the girls in her school. I have another daughter who was looking to get involved, and she loves soccer. And so we volunteer a lot at this Title I school. And so she's trying to figure out ways to get involved in the community, and thought, hey, I'm going to go to Parkside Elementary and I'm going to volunteer and do the after school soccer program. And she got to know these girls. And the other day she came home and she said, Mom, sorry, I keep talking about these feminine things, but these 6th graders need bras. And we went back to the school and they said, they don't have moms that are helping them become women. Wow. They don't. And so my girls, like Claire, who's there, volunteering, doing the after school program, then notices needs, gets to know the kids. And that is where they grow. They can come along, but when they start making it their own. And then the last example is a daughter who, at the time, which is funny, this is kind of full circle, when I was drowning in motherhood. And yes, at the time I had 1 child. Now I have 6, and I'm not nearly drowning as much, but I just thought I was going to die. It was so hard for me. And so I had this little adopted grandma down the street named Marlise, and she would help babysit Audrey. And so it was a win-win, because she got to hold this darling baby and I got a little time to myself. And my daughter's 17 years old now. And Audrey has developed the sweetest relationship with Marlise. It wasn't me saying, you should call Marlise, you should go stop by. Marlise has taken a fall. She's her husband's in a home. And just yesterday, Audrey went and took Marlise to get her nails done. And so the love and the companionship, that is what it's all about. They can come with us. It's like a testimony or anything. They can come along for the ride, but when they start incorporating it into their lives, you're like, this is what I've been waiting for. This is working. Not that it's going to happen with all of them. They're going to have different interests, but also not telling them, we care about this. We have another daughter who's just always asking questions, being curious, asking how these refugee families we work with. And so that she's thinking about it when we're not even going there, that tells me it's working. So that's what brings me so much joy.
That's amazing.
And it's what I've seen in our family that is really effective is that it's just consistency. It's not, it's always interesting around the holidays. Kristen will get an influx of dozens of calls.
Hundreds, thousands.
Of youth leaders looking for a service project for their youth to do, which is great that they're doing it. But our family, because of Kristen's leadership in this way, our family revolves around this. And it's like there are few days and there's never a week that goes by that it's not a topic of conversation, that the kids aren't sort of hopping in the Suburban to go and do something. And even on vacation, and this is something that Kristen's she's led, we find a place to do service wherever we go. And it's really interesting, the juxtaposition of being, at a nice resort in, in Mexico somewhere with a great pool and, oceanside, and then spending a day, in an orphanage, or serving food in, in a shanty town where children don't get breakfast. And so we've managed, through Kristin, to do these things consistently, and I think it starts to create a culture and a mindset that's not driven by a holiday, but it's driven by comfort being around those who have less and who have a need. And it starts to unlock some compassion and empathy that if you do it once a year, you still get a great moment. But I think, like anything, finding ways to exercise a value like this consistently just creates a different perspective on life.
Yeah. It's just who you are, you two. It's such a Christ-like quality and attribute that's just within you, and it's amazing that you've been able to bring that divine quality to the forefront in your life, put it to use in pretty significant ways. How do you balance, like, there is so much you're doing, and I don't know if there's ever really balance, but like, how do you have the energy, and where do you find some resemblance of balance in your life to do? How do you get it all done?
Yeah, what I would say,
that is the $1 million question.
Women ask me this all the time. For one, I believe that actually both of us were just born with a very large bandwidth. I just look at family, I look at friends, like, we're just all born differently, and I think both of us can take on a lot, and we're doing okay. The second is that it's not finding the balance. I talk a lot about creating balance, right? So there are times, same with Jeremy, absolutely, where he's a week almost on the road. So he knows that weekend, like, we're never looking at balance within a day. I'm not. I definitely know Jeremy's not. Even sometimes a week, it's hard to create that balance of, am I home enough? Was I at the stuff? Was I out in the community too much? But when I can look at balance on the whole in a week or in a month and know that I've been out 3 nights in a row at charity galas or whatever, I know that those 2 nights I'm saying no to everything else, because I haven't been home in a bit. So I'm constantly, especially as the mother, I am creating that balance. And what I will say is, you are always sacrificing something, right? So if I'm out in the community serving, I am not at my kid's soccer game. If I'm at my kid's soccer game, I am not out in the community helping the foster program like they wanted me to. And so nothing is ever, especially I would say as a woman, is, you're never doing it all. You're always sacrificing something. Sometimes I think I don't need to go to, like, just for me as a mom, I don't need to go to 100% soccer games. 80% is pretty darn good for me. We have 6 kids. That's the reality. And for me as a woman, talking about speaking my needs, I need to be out in the community doing things, because that really, really fills me. And to come and show up at the soccer game as the best cheerleader and mom, I need that yin and yang. And so that's what I find. And when I was driving, I had just had my twins. They were 2 weeks old. And I remember crying driving down to a Provo dance competition. And if you've ever been to a Provo dance competition, I was crying for a number of reasons. But it was that I was leaving my 2-week-old twins for the day to go with my oldest daughter. And I thought, this is why it's hard to have 6 kids. And I remember calling quite a few moms of multiple kids, and their advice was, balance a week, balance a month. You'll never balance it in a day. And that has served me for the past 9 years.
I'll say a similar thing, but slightly differently, which is, I've come to really think about trade-offs, and balance is hard. And at the end of the day, I think it's the same principle, which is, what are my core beliefs, and how do I want to make sure that over time I allocate not just my time, but my energy and my mindset, and everything against those core beliefs and priorities. And it took me a while to figure that out as an entrepreneur. And I'll say that, like, I made a lot of sacrifices for my profession before we got married. And so, like, those were just sacrifices of personal life and hobbies and whatnot. And early innings of being an entrepreneur, being married, having young children, I don't think our children internalize that, boy, dad travels a lot. But there was a moment in time as our children started to acknowledge that in ways that were obvious to me. and where I felt like I was doing the right thing, not just building a business, but trying to give back and mentor other entrepreneurs doing the same thing, that every hour I used had a trade-off. And I remember I read a book called Essentialism many years ago. It's incredible. And it forced me to realize that I couldn't put more hours in the day. I couldn't put more days in the week. And so an hour doing something good, like mentoring an entrepreneur during the day, that was an hour away from something else, from my family, from my church service, from my business. And so it forced me to just acknowledge I'm making trade-offs every time I choose to do something. And that is an interesting perspective where you realize there may be some things that are good, but that are not worth the trade-off. And I think it requires a very intentional, almost daily introspection as to, do I feel like I'm making the right trade-offs? And I'm not, and like maybe I've got a board meeting coming up in a couple of days. That's not the right moment to say, I've got to come home at 3:00 and spend time with my boys. But that is the right moment to say, I acknowledge the next 48 hours are going to be nuts. I got to rein this back in. And so it's a hard process to find balance and sort of contemplate trade-offs. But we both love, being busy is the wrong word, because like being busy, you can mistake action for progress. But we both love building and doing and
contributing,
like leaving positivity. And so that requires the act of doing, which just, we got to step back and make sure that doing good isn't getting in the way of what's truly important some days.
That priority is so incredible. And I love that, the trade-offs. I love looking at it in weeks and months instead of just today. Great, just advice for all of us to take into consideration and to understand. I've got two more questions if you guys are okay with that.
Sure.
You mentioned Essentialism. I love that book. We have a book club here at MTN Ops as part of our culture, and Essentialism's been one of those books in the curriculum there. He talked about the word priority and how it used to, in the English language, it was priority, and now all of a sudden we've bent reality and we've added priorities.
We've got many priorities.
Many priorities. And where he was going with that is there's one prior thing, and for me in my life, it's God. He's the priority, and when focused upon, things seem to work out if I just rely upon him, let him prevail in my life. How has faith played a role in your marriage, as a couple, as parents, even in your business and the decisions that you've made and where that's taken you? How's that connection? Because I think what we're talking about here, we're bringing people together through your brand, through your business, through all you're doing. You're a community builder. You're building bridges. You're bringing people, and there's one connection that matters most in life. What does that mean to you guys?
I'll start, and I'll just say something about Jeremy that I've always loved about him is I think his faith from the get-go, from when I first met him, gave him really deep roots. So when you look at success, right, the wins of change, whether that's success for him, I would say accolades, success, all of the fame and glory of building big businesses, you see a lot of people that blow to that wind and they become someone else. They leave their wife, they get new, like a new family or whatever that was and what is. And I think Jeremy's deep roots of faith have kept him so grounded, which I am so grateful for, because he's humble, he's kind, whether he's winning or losing or, making a lot of money or whatever, he is still the same guy that I met. A little bit more extroverted, I would say, but he has stood so steady. And I think that the deep roots and I look at him and the habits he has, which I'm sure he'll talk about that are really there. And I would say over time, faith has changed a lot for me. I think as I get older, I see God everywhere rather than I see actually a lot of my friends that get really, really focused, like really tight. And to me, it's like, I actually see Heavenly Father and my Savior everywhere. I've been going to the temple once a week for the last year, which is where we, go and worship. And it has been such a calming thing that I could barely do once a month. I didn't have the desire. And so I have found we talked a little bit about a leash earlier before the podcast. Like, I'm not good on a leash. Like, if someone tells me to do something, I'm actually not good. When I decide that I'm ready to do something and I'm there, then I'm all in, and it becomes really important to me. And one of my daughters said to one of my girlfriends the other day, "Oh my gosh, whenever I look up my mom's location, she's at the temple." Oh, cool. And I was like, I didn't even know she looks at my location, which is cute. And I'm not always there, but I'm there once a week. And so I thought, I don't even need to tell, but that they see that, right? That those things, that's really important to me, because I have found Christ. I do rely on him. And I can tell as my kids are getting older that I am looking more like, help me. Yeah. I don't know what I'm doing. I need that partnership. And then the last thing I'll say is, we're also given things like, I teach gospel doctrine, which is the Sunday school class. I am the least likely candidate. I kind of think outside the box. I'm not like a typical thinker in the LDS faith. And so I love that I feel like we can come as we are. Like, God wants us there, however we are, however we show up. I do it differently than other people. Jeremy and I even do it a little bit differently, but I think we found a lot of common good, and like our direction is absolutely the same.
That's awesome. I'd love to be a member of that class to learn from.
Oh,
That's
boy.
They're great really conversations. So I'll approach this from just a couple of brief angles. One is, I have pioneer ancestors who crossed the plains with Brigham Young. And my name is spelled Andrus because I had an ancestor who changed his name to run away from his home, from his family, to join the church, because it was not allowed. On my other side, I have pioneer heritage as well. And there was a moment in my life where I needed to decide what that heritage and what my faith meant to me. And there's an element of pressure in sort of looking at generations and saying, I don't want to be the weak link in the generation, but the faith has to be mine. I've got to feel it myself. And when I found it, like, truly for myself, not from anything else in my home, the generations, all of those influences were positive. It became my core. And as I think about my family and all of the adversity that I know will come along the way, and that's just the nature of life and 6 children, the rally cry is what we believe in. And it's how we treat people, and it's the example that comes from Jesus Christ. And that is what that's the only thing that I have like real confidence in will keep our family rooted in the right things. As an entrepreneur, long after having made that decision that this was going to be the journey that I was going to, like the road that I was going to travel, I've had moments where it's been hard to reconcile how I use my time. And as an entrepreneur, you kind of become consumed by what you're building, because you have to be to succeed. And it's not just success for the sake of success, but you bring people and families along with you. And what I have learned, and where I find peace, and not rationalization, but real peace, is believing that if I start my day the right way, if there is an hour in my morning before I've turned on my phone to look what's happening in my business, to see what's happening in global trade, to read the Wall Street Journal, before my mind starts to spin just a mile a second, it starts with my faith. And if I do that, what it gives me the ability is not to allocate many hours of my day towards like deeply introspective moments. It allows me to weave my faith into everything that I do. It allows me to sit in a business meeting and remember who I am and what I believe in. Whatever it is that happens during that day, if it's grounded in a moment that just sort of like resets me, brings me to center every day, that's where I can really be true to my core. And I will say, from a parenting perspective, Like we've long learned that we're not in charge.
Yeah.
I mean, like we're not in control. They've got to find themselves. And we believe the most effective way of doing that is just like living by example.
Yeah.
And you can't live by example if it's not burning in you first.
That's so powerful. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you guys for those examples. Last question, and it comes from another book that we read as a company here. It's How Will You Measure Your Life by Clayton Christensen, and one of my favorites. And I mean, you guys are investing a lot into people, into relationships. When all is said and done, as a conqueror in life, because I consider you such, how will you measure your life?
So first of all, you've touched on a book that we both believe deeply in, and actually our first exposure to that was back at my fifth Harvard Business School reunion, and Clayton Christensen was speaking in Burden Auditorium in front of 1,200 Harvard Business School graduates and their partner, their spouses. From many different classes and generations. It was fascinating to hear him stand up and talk about something that I think caught everyone off guard. It was like, how do we really measure success? Yeah. And he went through the metrics of business and how those fail to sort of really create deep fulfillment long term. And at the end of that, first of all, like an incredible standing ovation and not a dry eye in the room. And I think the essence of what he teaches there, regardless of what you believe in, what higher power, how you think about it, it was just filled with principles that connected to people's souls. Yeah. And I went out and I immediately bought the book, and it's a book I've read many times. And as I was thinking about my transition from Skull Candy to what was next, one of the things that gave me solace in building another business was, as Clayton Christensen talks about management and leadership being a noble profession. And not because we're making payroll every other week, but because we're helping people unlock their best selves. And it's not about the supplements we sell, the grills that we build. It's about the qualities of being a good, strong, confident, loving human being that you get to take into your home, into your community, into your congregation, wherever it is that you show up. And so that was deeply impactful to both of us. And how we measure our life, that's evolving in a very positive way in our life. And my why and our why, it's changed a lot along the way. It clearly has nothing to do with money, material possessions. It has only to do with the legacy of good and how we serve. And for me, the good news behind that is it's actually where you find happiness as well. It's like so symbiotic. And I love that Clayton Christensen, 2 years in a row voted brightest businessman in the world. In my opinion, I believe he would say the same thing. That's his crowning work. It's like all of these things around technology and innovation and disruption, those matter through the lens of business. But then you've got to step back and broaden your aperture to what really matters in life.
Love it. Thank you.
For my kids, it's definitely that my mom loved me. Because legacy is not, a picture on the wall of 50, grandkids and kids. That's not it. It's that they felt loved, right? No strings attached, despite everything that happened, that they felt loved. That's what I would hope for. And then in terms of community and with everyone else, and I it's funny as I've had, not funny, it's sad, as I've had friends pass away, you realize that legacy is what you left behind. It's relationships. I think it's someone saying, she sure showed up and she cared a lot about me. She really wanted to make my life better. She wanted to add value. She wanted to do the very best she could for others. That's all I could ask for in the end. So love, showing up, and caring a whole darn lot.
Well, if there's any two people that do it well and do it together, it's the two of you. I'll try not to get sweaty-eyed right now. In the fitness industry, we sweat from different places. My eyes get sweaty. A couple of scriptures come to mind as I sit and listen to the two of you, and as I watch and witness the life that you're living and the contribution that you're making. The Savior said, I stand at the door and knock, and he that will open up to me, I'll come and sup with him, and him with me, And that's what you do for people. You bring them in. You allow them a place to sit at your table, a place to feel welcomed, a place to feel loved. And then the Savior says, he that waiteth upon the Lord will have his strength renewed. He'll run and not be weary, walk and not faint. I think of the strength and the energy that I'm experiencing with you two and the lives that I see you living. You have that strength renewed, that energy to run and not be weary, to walk and not faint, even though you probably do feel weary at times and, oh, can we keep going? I mean, that happens to all of us, but it's because of what you're doing. He says, they that wait upon the Lord, you're waiting upon the Lord. You're serving him. It's not just to sit around, be idly, waiting for good things to happen. You consider the Savior sitting at our table, and you're waiting upon him. And I see you doing that in an amazing way, because he says that inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these, my brethren, you've done it unto me. And inasmuch as you're out serving those, you're waiting upon me. You're taking care of me by taking care of those. What a legacy and a life that you guys are living in that manner. Those scriptures just come to mind and with full force as I learn more about you and appreciate that example. Those that are listening will be very blessed. I've been blessed. And so I just want to thank you for the time and attention you've given to the Mountain Ops community. Hopefully those outside will hear this as well and learn more about you and Traeger and all the advocacy and all the community outreach and bringing together through connection, we conquer in life. So thank you for the connection you've given to me.
Thank you for the
so
kind
much.
words. It's been a great conversation. I will say that when you get behind the scenes, you realize that we are a work in progress every day. And it's like it is a journey of trying to double down on the things that matter every single day. And no day is perfect, but the journey's incredible.
It's awesome. Thank you
Thank
both.
you.
Thank you.